Are you looking to get ready, be prepared, and transform your financial future? Then you've come to the right place. This is the Get Ready Money podcast with Tony Stewart, where Tony has insightful conversations with financial experts who are changing the way we think about money. Catch up on the latest financial trends and hear practical advice from Tony and his expert guests so you can build healthy habits that work. Be empowered with tips for implementing small changes that can have a big impact on your financial future. So sit back and get ready to hear from today's guest.
Welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast, changing the way we think about money. I'm pleased to be joined today by Carolina Perez Sanz. Carolina is an author and advocate for helping people to overcome under-earning. In this episode, we'll be discussing Carolina's insights on how we change the way we think about money and about busting money ghosts. Carolina, welcome to the Get Ready Money podcast. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited about this conversation.
Yeah, me too. Let's start with you. What is your origin story?
How far do you want me to go back?
Well, whatever you think is relevant.
Okay, yeah, well, I started my career as a voice coach. So I worked with people, I helped people who were professional voice users to use their voices in a way that was powerful, and they sounded confident, and also they could avoid getting pathologies in their vocal folds. So I worked with a lot of TV reporters, radio commentators, teachers, actors, singers, rock and roll and nu metal singers. It was fun. So I was doing that. Then I got a PhD in voice research. And that's when I started to realize that I was kind of trapped with money, because I was very famous. I was the most well-known voice coach in Madrid, and I was barely making money. I mean, I could buy the necessary things and I could pay for the things that I needed, but I could never splurge. I never felt it was okay for me to go a little overboard. But yet I persisted in that. Like, yes, I never raised my prices or my rates, because I feared that my clients would stop coming. I worked for CNN, for example, in Spain, or the public national broadcasting service in Spain. I was very famous. I wrote for the Huffington Post, and yet I persisted in that very low level income, if you want. So that's when I thought, oh, I think it's the country, because the country, like, people in Spain are very comfortable with not having a lot of money. And it's like, oh yeah, we're all poor and nothing's wrong with that. So I thought it was the country, because I wanted more money and more, to build more savings and for retirement and all that. So we moved to the US thinking, oh, in the US, everybody makes a lot of money. And, the streets are paved with gold. That's what we think back from Spain, right? And yet, under-earning followed me, because it was in me, not in the country. I mean, I think the country in Spain is an overall under-earning country, but maybe I inherited all those things and I came here with that baggage. And yeah, so in New York, I started to work for a communication consulting firm. We worked with financial services as clients, and there I was like, oh no, it's possible to make more money. It's possible to you know, to have this a different type of life and income. And I started to learn about money. I started to read everything I know I could find about money. I subscribed to the Wall Street Journal. I read books. Well, my favorite was Danny Kahneman's Thinking Fast and Slow. It's not directly about money, but it's behavioral economics, right? And Richard Thaler. That's when everything started to shift for me. So, and then I became a coach, like more, I do coactive coaching, which is something very internal. And I've worked with executives in companies, but also with people who needed to have a better outlook on life. So that's why I don't say it's not life coaching or it's not executive coaching, because it's both. It's like personal coaching, if you want. And now I'm here.
Well, that's really cool. And I think you said something that I think is, something people struggle with is setting your rates, asking for what you're worth. And I know that, for women, it's even a harder issue. And
Yes.
we could spend the whole episode talking about that. But I think, that's, valuable to ask for what you're worth and to not be scared. Although it's super easy to say. I know when I was consulting, I had a hard time raising my rates as well. It is so hard to do. It's easy to say to get paid what you're worth, but to actually do it is, what advice would you give people to ask for what you're worth? Do you have a good tip?
Well, run some calculations of really the money you need, but hard calculations, like take pen and paper and calculator or spreadsheet or whatever, and be really crystal clear on exactly the numbers you need, and then take it from there. Because I believe that a lot of people, especially when we consult and we depend on other people buying from us, we focus on what they can pay instead of focusing on what we need in order to keep our lights on and to be alive, right? So the advice would be, first, be really clear on what you need. And I would advise to do this exercise of calculating exactly what you need. And then you say what you want. But I mean, you can add up anything you want. For example, I don't know, if you could say the bare minimum that I need is 500, let's say. And then if I want to save money for my retirement, I need 200 more. And, doing all those calculations. So that way it becomes, oh no, it's the spreadsheet that ordered me what I want to ask, what I need to ask, right? So kind of having a boss on top of you telling you, no, this is what you need to ask or ask for. And yeah, so I don't know, maybe I talk too much. I don't know.
Not at all. And that's actually wonderful advice, is to focus on what you need rather than what your clients can pay. Because if it's not enough money for you to make a living and to continue your business, you can't serve anybody.
Exactly. And that's what I tell everybody. For example, I was working with a woman and she was saying, oh, but I believe that everybody should have the opportunity to get my services. I think, therefore, they should be free. I shouldn't charge for them because they're good for the world. And I was telling her that exactly. Well, if you don't charge people for your services, how long are your services going to be around? They're going to disappear. And then another thing related to that is a lot of people are going to say no to you. That's fine. I mean, and they're going to say no, not because of the money you're asking for, but because they don't need you or they don't see the value in your service or whatever, but not because of the money. So that's, I think, very important also to keep in mind.
Yeah, it makes me think of this book by Kristen Andre, and if I'm pronouncing her notes correctly, and for people watching and listening, I'll make sure I have the correct note in the book. But the title for book is "You Can Be for Everybody, but You're Not for Everybody." And and I think that sums it up. Is your people will find you, and
Exactly, exactly, exactly. And I've seen a lot of people, especially maybe women, who are having this internal dialogue when they're thinking about, I'm going to tell my prices. I have a sales call and I will need to tell my price. They're all the time like, what if they say no? What if they say no? Thinking, what does that person saying no to me say about myself? Which is, the response is nothing. The person says no to you because something that they have inside, not because anything that you have, right? But I think a lot of times we confound what we think the other person is going to think of us, and we try to please them and we try not to be rejected and all that. So
so the thing, I know you talk about personal power. So why is it important for people to grow their personal power?
I mean, it's paramount, because without personal power, you don't, let me rephrase that. Personal power is what allows you to trust yourself, to really make the decisions that you really want to make and not somebody else, and to 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 be sure of what you are, regardless of what other people think, right? So I divide personal power into self-leadership, self-trust, and self-worth. And I think the three play a very important role together, especially when it comes to ask for what we want. And as you said before, to charge our worth and things like that. I don't know if it's possible to charge our worth, because we could believe that as humans we are invaluable. We don't have a price, right? Like, we are invaluable. So, but if we're not empowered, if I don't stand in my full power, I'm always scanning the environment for what other people are thinking about me, to feel, am I appropriate? I am not, am I not? Am I adequate? Do I fit in? And that is what decreases our, for example, our possibility to have an impact in the world or to make an impact, and also to be really ourselves. So for me, personal power is like, boom, that's the most important thing in the world.
That's awesome. I love it. So you said so many great things, but you have to trust yourself.
Yes.
And I think that, and and going back to what you said earlier is, yeah, spreadsheets are not everything, and numbers aren't everything, but it does give you a good idea, you know, and it gives you the confidence, or it gives you some confidence, because you still have to ask, and that is the hardest part, is to have the conversation. But yeah, I
Yes.
love it.
Yes.
But the more, as you said, is you trust yourself, the more you'll have the confidence to do these things. Um, so that's great. So, a big thing that you talk about are money ghosts. What are money ghosts?
Thank you for that question. I love it. So money ghosts are behaviors that have been identified as behaviors that people who are under earners do or show or showcase, right? So we could say there are symptoms of under-earning. I call them money ghosts because I thought it was a very impactful descriptor of that thing. And I wanted to bypass the idea that people, if you tell somebody, I think you're an under-earner, they might be like, what? What are you telling me? I'm not an under-earner. And they will feel very bad. But if you say, oh, maybe you have some money ghosts, they could think, oh, yeah, I may have some money ghosts. So that's why I use this terminology. So the money ghosts are 12 symptoms that all the under-earners show and do and incur in, if you want. And they're very interesting because some of them seem like they are not directly related to money, but we do them because we are under earners and because we have this mentality that we don't deserve more things or better things, and therefore we stick with that behavior or with that symptom. And some, as I said, may not seem related to money immediately. For example, the first one is time indifference. I know in this culture we always say money, time is gold, right? Or time is money. So we have drawn a more or less direct parallel between time and money. But the fact that under-earners are time indifferent shows up in different ways. For example, somebody says, yes, someday I will be rich. Okay, someday. When is that someday? Well, I don't know. I'm not going to put a date, because if I put a date, then I will be accountable for my actions and whatever. So that is the type of floppiness around money, around time. Or, for example, someday, oh yes, I'm going to be rich in 2 years. What am I doing today to take a step towards being rich? Well, I don't know, because I still have a lot of time. It's 2 years, right? So nothing today. But if we don't take the step today, we won't take the step tomorrow. And so that is the link between time indifference and money ghost. There's another money ghost that I really love, which is clinging to useless possessions.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was also phrased as sunk costs by, for example, Richard Taylor. So this idea that because I spent a lot of money in this thing, I refuse to let it go or let go of it. And that shows up in, for example, of course, clothing. I bought a pair of pants when I was 17, and I'm so proud that I still fit in them, that I keep them. Okay. 34 years later or something, right? That ridiculous. And it also shows up in behaviors. For example, like I'm used to doing this thing. So even though it doesn't bring me anything in return, I keep doing it because I have that money ghost. So I cling to useless possessions or things or businesses, or I keep doing it because it takes less effort to keep doing something that I've always done than to change and do something different. So
I love that, because I think that is a behavior that we get in the habit of doing certain things, especially with our money. And, we're like, oh, well, I've been doing this forever. I was an insurance consultant, and I'd see that sometimes with people with these expensive whole life insurance policies. And I'm like, well, you don't really need it. And they're like, I've been paying all these years. And it's like, well, that doesn't matter. You should really be thinking about whether you need it or not,
Exactly.
rather than, is this product good or bad? It's like, well, does it fit your goals? Does it fit the
Exactly.
big picture? So I love that, because money ghosts are something that we all deal with.
Yeah.
And understanding what they are is a first step to addressing them.
Yeah.
So I know you've got a book coming up that you're in the process of writing, and
Yes.
I know it's coming out next year. But what inspired you to write your book, Stop Being Afraid of Money?
So one day in March of 2023, I think. Yeah, in 2023, I heard this term under earner. Like I listening to a podcast, I heard Barbara Hewson now, speak about her book, Overcoming Under Earning. And I was very curious, very intrigued. And I said to myself, oh, I think I am an under earner. It immediately spoke to me. So I bought her book and I started to read a lot of books about money and manifesting and all these things like, yeah, uh, mm, becoming more successful with money, etc. And I started to write about my relationship with money. I was writing in a community of writers, and I started to write there about my relationship with money and all those beliefs about money and myself, because of course the money ghosts inform us of our self-worth. Like, because we have the money ghosts, we believe we are worth less than what we are. And the money
I
ghosts,
love
of
that.
course, yeah, the money ghosts come from how we were treated as young children. And of course, most are most of our caregivers were very well intentioned, and they didn't realize that this backhanded comment or this look on their faces or whatever we took as, oh, that means I'm worthless, or that means I don't matter, or that means everything that I wish for or I need or anything doesn't matter. It has to be ignored. But that's another thing. So I started to write about those appreciations and those observations about me growing up as a child with my parents in Spain, and then me when I started my business in Spain, always undercharging, under always like shooting myself on the foot in terms of pricing and all that. And I saw that everything that I wrote was resonating with a lot of people. And they were like, oh, yeah, this has happened to me too. Oh, oh, that's so insightful. Yes, I've also had that type of feelings. And so I was writing a memoir back then, and I decided, okay, the money is exactly going to be the line through in the memoir. And then I shifted even more, and instead of, because it was a memoir about me, like author centered. And then I said, no, I want to help people overcome these self-limiting beliefs. So I'm going to make it like a teachable memoir, if you want, or a teaching memoir, which is more about tools and frameworks to really get rid of those money ghosts.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see it. And for people who are watching and listening, the show notes will be updated when the book is released. And also, Carolina, I'll feature the book in my newsletter. So people who subscribe to my newsletter will find out when the book is out. So
Nice.
excited to see it. Congratulations. Writing a book is definitely not an easy task. But I think these are conversations that people need to be aware of, because if you can't conquer the money ghost, knowing what type of investments is useless. So you have
Exactly.
to start at the beginning. So
Exactly.
let's switch gears and get into the Get Ready Money questions. The
Mm-hmm.
first one is, What basic money concept do you wish people knew?
What basic money concepts? I don't know. You caught me off
Yeah.
guard. Uh, but I would say, going back to what I said in the beginning when you asked me what piece of advice would I give to somebody to ask for, to charge what they, I mean, realistically in what they need, according to what they need, I would say understanding your real needs in terms of money is super important. And I think that a lot of people are they play fast and loose with numbers, and they're like, yeah, well, I need around X amount of dollars every month, but they don't really know exactly. So maybe I don't know what you think of that, but there are a lot of people who advocate for having a little spending record or tracker and planning the expense, the expenses and how you're going to spend your money in the next month and all that. So I don't know. Is that a
Well, that's
basic
actually
concept? Yeah.
that is a basic concept, and I think it's something, as you point out, people don't know their numbers. If you don't know your numbers and your resources, it's going to be really hard to make sound financial decisions. That doesn't mean you have to have a strict budget, but you have to know what your income is. You have to know where you're spending your money so that you can make changes if you need to make changes. Or, as you point out, use it to ask for what you're worth, either in salary or if you're consulting or whatever. But also, so you know how much, maybe we don't have enough money to go on this fancy vacation this year. Maybe we go on a fancy vacation every other year.
Yeah.
But if you don't know your numbers, you're going to find yourself in debt. You're going to find yourself not saving enough money for your goals. So that's wonderful advice. I love it. So,
Okay, great. Thank you.
yeah. So the next one is, what is one simple thing you can do each year to set yourself up for financial success?
No idea. I mean, all that we have been talking about, knowing your numbers and knowing your goals. But I would say, I mean, for me, like um, saving and investing, I, I, I very much believe in doing both things. But each year, yeah, I would maybe set a target like this. For example, right now I have a target. This is what I want to save every month because this is what I want to have saved at the end of the year. And this is what I want to have invested, right? So set a very clear number of what I want to have saved, which also will inform the money that I need to ask for. If I'm a salaried person or a consultant, that will inform also what I need to charge.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Review your goals periodically and see if you're on target. Um,
Exactly. Yeah.
I think sometimes people miss that. It's a very basic concept, um, but we blow by it because we get busy. So for
Yeah.
people watching and listening, this is the plug for the Get Ready Money Club, my free program where you get one weekly action item to remind you of these things. So I'd urge you, if you're not subscribed to my newsletter, to check it out, join the Get Ready Money Club. So that's my plug. So
Nice.
next
Very good.
question. What is one habit that people can change when it comes to their money?
One habit. Hmm. Pay their credit card in full at the end of the month, at the end of the billing period.
Yeah, in full. I think that is such a valuable habit. Is to do it is credit card debt is some of the most expensive debt that you can carry. So, my advice to further on is to rank all your debt and see what your most expensive debt is. So if you're not able to pay off all of your credit card in full because maybe you have too much credit outstanding, is to go out, prioritize which credit cards cost you the most money, pay
Mhm.
those off first until you get to a point where you can pay all your credit cards in full. But I would say
Mhm.
this is a money ghost. Is sometimes people go, well, it's just too much. I can't do it. I'm struggling with this credit card debt. I don't know where to go. So,
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, my advice was more, if you use your credit card 1 month, at the end of that month, you have to pay it. And if you don't, that means you didn't have the money that you spent.
ah,
So don't spend it.
don't spend money you don't have. That is
Exactly.
wonderful advice. And it's so easy to do. I mean, that's the whole point of
Absolutely.
credit cards, to get you to spend money you don't have.
Yes. And I think we're in this country, we're really trapped by everything credit, right? For example, when I came to this country 10 years ago, I didn't have, in Spain, I had one credit card, I think, and I barely used it because it's not, it, at least back then, it was not very common for
Mhm.
Spaniards to have credit cards. We had our bank accounts and a debit card, and that's it. But when I came here, and I wanted to pay cash or debit, people were like, "No, you need a credit card. What for?" Well, because, right? Like this is the country of credit cards. And if you don't have credit cards, then you don't have credit, and then people don't rent you, or it's very difficult to exist in this country without credit cards. So, yeah, I think it's a very good plot that they have.
Yeah, no, and this is a line through to your basic money concept, is, to know your numbers. So
Yeah.
you know how much you can spend, and to be
Mhm.
intentional with your spending. That's wonderful advice. So the next one is about money myths. What
Mhm.
money myth are you trying to break?
Um, I don't know. I mean, what's the difference between money myths and money ghosts? Well, money
Either
ghost,
one is,
yeah,
because a money ghost is sort of like a money myth, so,
yeah.
what is the big one that you wish people changed, or you'd love to change?
I would love for people to first stop being afraid of money and really
I love
dive
that.
into money. Like money is nothing if you don't give it meaning. So it's not a scary thing unless you have a lot of money ghosts that make it scary for you. But I would love for people to stop undervaluing themselves and therefore underpricing their services or their work as salaried people, because I believe that that's very, very, very pervasive. So it so it's so difficult, right? Because you don't ask for what you want, or there are not jobs available for some people to have the income they need. And then we're all the time bombarded by, oh, go on a cruise, take this vacation, buy this amazing car. And we need to consume to be a citizen, right? And at the same time, it's very difficult for us to ask for what we want. So it's a it's a tension that occurs there. And I would say, first, stop undervaluing yourself. So if they offer you a job that doesn't allow you to meet your needs, your basic needs, don't take that job. Because if you take that job, you're going to end up using credit, and that's not going to help you. So,
Yeah, that's awesome advice. Ask for what you want.
yeah.
So Carolina, let's get out the time machine for a minute. What advice would you give your younger self if you could go back in time, knowing what you know now about money?
I mean, I would sit her down for 2 days in a row telling her everything that she doesn't have to do. The first thing I did out of college, you're going to be shocked, and I think many people are going to be shocked. I worked for free without pay for 5 years out of college because, oh no, I was volunteering, I was learning my skills, I was getting experience, and I worked without pay for 5 years in a public hospital.
Wow.
And then I did at the same time, I was doing an internship in a clinic, also without pay, for 2 years. So for 2 of those 5 years, I worked full time without pay. And the other 3, I started my own business. So I worked in the morning at the hospital for nothing, zero. And then I had my own clinic where, of course, I undercharged because I didn't want people to say, oh no, it's too expensive. So the first advice would be never work for free. Like, never in your life work for free. And I know that there has been a lot of debate here in the US with internships. And some people have been saying, if you go into a non-paid internship, you are showing your privilege because you can't afford working for free.
I hadn't thought about it that way, but that is 100% accurate.
Yeah. So if you have somebody who pays for your rent, or if you have rich parents, of course you can go into non-paid work, you can volunteer here and there. That's awesome. Very good for the planet, maybe. But it deepens the mentality of the under earner, because it should be illegal to work for free. Right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I hadn't thought about it from the privilege standpoint, but that's 100% accurate. But yeah, it does contribute to that mindset that your work value is zero
Exactly.
because
Yeah.
you're not getting paid. So that's awesome advice. So Carolina, to wrap up, what is your number one tip on changing the way we think about money?
The number one tip in changing the way we think about money, as I said before, money doesn't have power, or money doesn't give you power. You have your personal power, and thanks to your power, you can use your money in the way you want, right? So the tip would be, don't be afraid of money, and
I love it.
don't see money as an entity that you can't start to, I don't know, like, see money as a tool, because it's a tool, right? Like, don't see money as evil or good or dangerous or whatever. Money doesn't corrupt. What corrupts is the power that one has, like the overpower that one can have if they use the money to buy favors and, to buy people. But
That's
money in
awesome.
itself doesn't corrupt, because you see a lot of people who are extremely wealthy, who are super humble and very good citizens, and they help the world, and they do amazing things with the money. So it's not the money that is evil.
I love it. And people have heard this from other guests before. The same message is money
Mhm.
is just a tool, and it's understanding how to use the tool that helps you be successful. And you've given us great tips through the show. So that's a wonderful tip. So where can people learn more about you, find out what you're up to, and find out when your book's coming out?
Well, I am not very active on LinkedIn lately, because I believe, I mean, I have been a little burned out with LinkedIn. I was posting all the time. So I have decided, I still can be found on LinkedIn, but I have decided to start a newsletter, an email newsletter. So I would be very happy to have people find me there. And if they want to subscribe to the newsletter, they can find out in real time what I'm working with or on in terms of the book.
Well, fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, I'll make sure there's a link to Carolina's newsletter so you can be sure to check it out and subscribe to her newsletter. So, so that's awesome. So, Carolina, thanks again for joining us today on the Get Ready Money podcast.
It was a pleasure. Such a fun conversation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you for sharing your insights. And thank you, everyone, for tuning into this episode of the Get Ready Money podcast. If you learned something today to change the way you think about money, please be sure to subscribe and share with a friend. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.